Everybody in the city knows Slackjaw always keeps a boggin. So I got a great one for ya. Watch and subscribe to this channel and I promise you won't regret it.
Don't, and
Well, you don't want to disappoint Slackjaw.
In a world where might makes right, legitimacy can just be a matter of opinion. In the best of times, Dunwall street gangs represent a parallel power structure. In times of crisis like the Rat Plague, they can attain the status of governments unto themselves, sometimes even to the point of providing some beneficial services. But make no mistake, whether Empress, Parliament, City Watch, or Gang Boss, these entities are first and foremost self-serving, often predatory, and always backed by violence. The Bottle Street Gang is the first we encounter in Dishonored, and one of the most powerful. Their territory is Bottle Street and the entire distillery district. They wield cleavers and flammable liquor with which they spit fire at opponents. The gang's led by Slackjaw, bastard child of a prostitute and a prince, though he doesn't know it. He grew up on the streets running with the crew from the age of 10. His intelligence made him a leader, and he gained his reputation working for an older gang led by Black Sally. A rival up-and-comer, Mike the Fish, broke his jaw with a ceramic spittoon and thus gave him his name. But Slackjaw's revenge the next day was brutal, tearing Mike to pieces with a chain laden with hooks. He pinned a note to the corpse saying anyone wanting a job should come to Bottle Street. Many existing gangs reacted violently to Slackjaw's new operation, but his reaction matched it, with enemy bosses ending up dead and friendly ones profiting. He stabilized the gang's position by bribing watchmen and shopkeepers and entering the businesses of prostitution, hound fights, and whiskey distribution. By the time of the Rat Plague, they'd grown strong enough to take the Dunwall whiskey distillery from the weakening Hatter gang in a war that left Slackjaw more powerful than ever. Graffiti all over the district reveals the outcome. Hatters fired the first shot, but Bottle Street Gang fired the last. They switched from whiskey to peddling bootleg elixir, watered-down versions sold to citizens and even some City Watch. Slackjaw values integrity, considering himself an honorable man.
that's me in the poster.
Slackjaw's crimes include larceny, assault, mendacity, disobedience of public ordinance, unlawful management of prostitutes, and public urination.
Pretty good likeness.
Slackjaw's right-hand man is Crowley, who's been with him since they ran together as children. One of my previous videos reads Crowley's account of Slackjaw's early life. During the worst of the plague after Jessamine's assassination, Crowley helped Slackjaw ration food, elixir, and coin to keep the gang going as well as possible. When someone began killing members and stealing their goods, Crowley was sent to investigate, and was only able to make a partial report before he was killed. This report would have revealed that in fact it was Granny Rags who was attacking them. Crackston is a high-ranking member in charge of running the distillery that produces the bootleg elixir. It's not clear why a still is necessary since they're only watering down genuine elixir, but whatever it is, Crackston's in charge of it. He seems to have earned the particular hatred of the Hatters at the Black Friar in the legal district, as they mentioned getting even with him by name. Alec is a well-respected member of the gang stationed on Caldwin's Bridge, collecting river-crust pearls. He's captured by the Watch while investigating the Ark pylons, and should Corvo encounter him, he'll promise a reward for his release. But after leading Corvo to safety, he and his comrades will ambush and attack him. After the plague, Empress Emily cracked down on all gangs, including Bottle Street, Though weakened during these years, Slackjaw maintained control over his men, even as he switched to more legitimate enterprises such as exotic liquor importation and renovating Brigmore Manor. The Hatters are one of the oldest gangs in Dunwall, though no longer the most powerful. They operate out of Draper's Ward, running a textile mill which supplies shrouds for the plague dead. They're ostensibly led by the geezer, Mortimer Hatt, but in reality the gang is controlled by Hatt's nurse, William Trimble. They wear top hats and braces and carry cleavers and pistols. Originating outside the city, the Hatters in Dunwall date to 1829, when Mortimer Hatt became one of 3 investors in the rundown Draper's Ward. He reinvented the fabric district into a shopping destination for Dunwall's elite, supplying the latest fashions. He grew very wealthy, using his gang to keep underpaid textile workers in line under cruel conditions. The Hatters expanded to other parts of Dunwall, including the Dunwall Whiskey Distillery. When his gang connections became known, the district declined in popularity and experienced a financial crash in 1835. The Rat Plague came soon after, and the gang never recovered their former power. The Bottle Street Gang drove them from the Distillery District, the Butchers drove them from Slaughterhouse Row, and the Dead Eels took the riverfront from them. All these attacks turned the Hatters into more of a joke than a force to be feared. William Trimble, a fallen natural philosopher kicked out of the academy, became Mortimer Hatt's nurse, using the nearly 100-year-old geezer for experiments in artificially prolonging life using whale oil and electrical impulses. Trimble kept Hatt alive as a figurehead, rigging it so that if Hatt died, a toxin would be released and kill everyone nearby. But under his leadership, the Hatters have attempted to reclaim territory from the Dead Eels, as well as take over the Blackfriar Hotel in the Legal District waterfront, using Sokolov technology to protect their turf. When the textile mill is disabled by the stoppage of Millinery Canal, they steal a ship's engine coil from the Eels, convincing Edgar Wakefield to replace Lizzie Stride as leader. When Dowd encounters them, he can reclaim the coil by fulfilling the geezer's death wish, or by restoring flow to the canal. After 1850, Hatt is dead one way or another, but the Hatters are still around, planning to establish black market shops and robbing abandoned apartments after Delilah's coup. An offshoot of the Hatters, known as the Roaring Boys Gang, splintered off sometime after the death of the geezer. Their business seems mostly to be shipping contraband, particularly weapons of the types used by the Watch. They operate in the Old Port District and also do business in the Distillery District. They own boats for smuggling along the Wrenhaven River and are led by Dapper Rodney and second-in-command Sly Harold. The Dead Eels are a gang also based in Draper's Ward along the waterfront. Their primary activities are smuggling and piracy along the Wrenhaven River, attacking cargo ships and City Watch patrol boats. They bear many tattoos and fight using gaff hooks and bottles of corrosive river crust acid that disorient enemies as well as deal some damage. The Dead Eels were founded by Lizzie Stride, a native of Morley who left after killing an abusive schoolmaster. She served aboard a ship disguised as a boy, but when she was found out, she fled execution along with a few followers. She briefly took an aristocratic lover, which let her obtain papers that granted access to places off-limits to most merchants. When Lizzie and her followers stole the cargo ship Undine, the Dead Eels were born. Lizzie has teeth filed to sharp points, and is rumored to have webbed feet, though close inspection in the game shows this is not true. It's heavily implied, and confirmed by developer commentary, that Mortimer Hatt is Lizzie's father. Hatt gave Lizzie the door code to the textile mill long ago, but she never used it. The Dead Eels are extremely violent, raiding ships on the river and taking no prisoners. The Undine is so notorious that corrupt harbor masters and even watch river patrol officers let it pass without interference. The Hatters complain that they've taken all the good smuggling deals, and the two gangs are constantly at war over turf in Draper's Ward. One account of a Dead Eels attack by William Cotter on his ship the Windover relates how they sneaked aboard in a fog and butchered half the crew before the captain knew what was happening. He hid in a smuggling compartment, while Lizzie bit the first mate's tongue out and tossed him into the river. While Cotter slipped overboard to escape, the Eels pillaged the ship, then sank it. Lizzie Stride's second-in-command, Edgar Wakefield, set her up to be arrested by the City Watch and taken to Coldridge. But Wakefield was a poor leader, not keeping his word in deals and executing Lizzie's loyalists, ruling through fear. His authority was further undermined when the Hatters stole the Undine's engine coil. Wakefield privately admits he's in over his head, and the gang is on the verge of falling apart when Dowd breaks Lizzie out of prison to reclaim control. The Dead Eels are still around in some form in 1850, guarding an old whaling trawler when Corvo attempts to board it. The Whalers are a gang of assassins wielding supernatural powers, and are based in the ruins of the Rudshore Financial District, also known as the Flooded District. They're led by Dowd. There's more than enough material on Dowd for several separate videos, so I'll say only that the Whalers were formed sometime soon after Dowd's arrival in Dunwall in 1811. He recruited mercenaries, street kids, and refugees, training them in the skills of stealth and assassination, as well as sharing his supernatural powers with them. They shared the goal of inflicting vengeance upon the city's supposed undesirables, earning coin to eliminate other criminals, officials, and aristocrats. The gang wears leather gas masks used by whale oil plant workers, giving them their name. Novice assassins wear gray and brown clothes, while higher-ranked members wear dark blue. Only Dowd and his second-in-command, Billy Lurk, wear red. They attack with blades and wrist bows, and also use Dowd's versions of blink and pull through his arkane bond sharing power. But Dowd does not have complete control over this ability, and some members aren't able to use his powers, serving Dowd in other ways. A common tactic of theirs is to appear behind a target, or to pull them into an unfavorable position and use their wrist bows for a ranged attack. They are very disciplined and do not speak well in combat, and even the heart has trouble learning their thoughts. Their masks do not protect from the Dead Eels' acid bottles. Their gloves contain a hidden poison needle, with which they can commit suicide upon being captured to avoid torture. It's not known where they were based before the plague, but in 1836, when Rudshore flooded from neglect, they took over the district, chasing off survivors to make their base there. They caught the attention of spymaster Hiram Burroughs, who hired them to assassinate Jessamine Caldwin and kidnap Emily. Soon after, the overseers from the Abbey launched an assault on the district to eliminate the gang due to their use of black magic, but were unsuccessful. Dowd met Billy Lurk in 1829, after she spied him killing multiple watch officers without making a sound. She'd been living on the streets for years, a fugitive after murdering Redanus Abel, son of the Duke of Sarkonos, after he first murdered Billy's lover Deirdre. Billy chased Dowd across rooftops and alleys, which impressed him. He took her under his wing and after many years of training became his protégé. Billy did reconnaissance for all Dowd's missions, and informed him about the ship named Delilah that set him on the path of confrontation with Delilah Copperspoon. But when she saw Dowd hesitate due to his regret over killing Jessamine, Billy took this as weakness, and betrayed Dowd to Delilah in order to take over as leader of the Whalers. The scheme fell apart and Billy was banished from the gang. Soon after this, Thomas became de facto second-in-command, aiding Dowd in his final fight with Delilah, though he did not take up a red outfit. After Dowd left Dunwall, Thomas attempted to keep the Whalers together for a time, but they began to lose their supernatural powers, and the gang dissolved. Thomas also left to live in Karnaca, where he and Billy maintained occasional contact. He met Dowd one last time in 1850, but lied about knowing where Billy was when asked, just in case Dowd still held a grudge. One former whaler, Gallia Fleet, attempted to find former members and reassemble, but did not have much success, and ended up providing security services to the Golden Cat. There are other gangs mentioned throughout Dishonored, though less is known about them. Black Sally was a gang leader sometime before 1837, and her gang was known simply as Black Sally's Gang. She's referred to but not encountered in Dishonored. Another native of Morley, pale-skinned, green-eyed with hair as black as the void, as a girl she used her looks to lure men into alleys, then knife them and be off with their coin. She later ran one of the meanest street gangs up to that time, employing Slackjaw before he formed the Bottle Street Gang. She preyed on average citizens, running a wide array of businesses including shipping, prostitution, and some kind of racket involving the Bakers Guild. Accounts of her differ, with one book claiming that she'd been eradicated, along with her gang, by one watch captain, Jules Robin. But Slackjaw's Elixir accounts list her as a customer, implying she's still alive as of 1837. Another gang about which little is known beyond the name is the Parliament Street Cutters. Based presumably on Parliament Street and headed by Jim Dundermore, they grew in prominence after the decline of the Hatters, likely taking part in the looting of houses abandoned during the plague. The Six Ways Gang is not very well known, but is considered by Dowd to be the most dangerous, most cutthroat, most violent of all in Dunwall. They confine themselves entirely to the Wormwood district, using the Suicide Hall Tavern as a base, and their only business is smuggling. They'll smuggle anything from heretical artifacts to people, and can make anyone disappear for a price. The one serious attempt to eliminate them, the infamous Battle of Mandragora Street, led to the deaths of dozens of overseers. Their leader is called Eat 'em Up Jack, but is in fact a title passed down to each leader in succession. They dress well, but with their suit lapels sliced away, and are armed with 2 pistols and lead-filled leather blackjacks. Their name derives from the 6-way street intersection where they are based, and is likely a reference to the historical 5 Points neighborhood of old New York City, depicted in Gangs of New York. The gang was nearly eliminated in 1852 by a single clockwork soldier. One of the newest criminal factions in Dunwall was the Rat Gang. Led by Luella Price, their goal seemed simply to breed chaos and destruction and rule over whatever's left. After Delilah's defeat, they hampered rebuilding efforts in the city by murdering construction crews, wearing rat masks to spread fear. They abducted Democratic reformer Archibald Wainwright, using him to incite a riot as a distraction for bombings, and repeatedly attacked Emily Caldwin with bone charms to negate her powers. But at an abandoned wharf on the waterfront, Price was overpowered and arrested, sentenced to a lifetime aiding in the rebuilding of Dunwall. I know this video is called Gangs of Dunwall, but I can't neglect to mention the Howlers of Karnaca. Led by Paolo and Mindy Blanchard, they don't see themselves as a gang, but idealists and revolutionaries, seeking to overturn the corrupt Duke and Grand Guard in the name of the working people. They prey on upper and middle class citizens as parasites. They attack and rob anyone better dressed than the working class, and run protection rackets among black market shops. They're based in the Dust District at the Crone's Hand Saloon on Miramar Street, where they deal in liquor and gambling. They're locked in a war with the Overseers, who maintain a base at the nearby Bales Trading Company building. They frequently threaten and intimidate the businesses they protect. If the player robs too many black market shops, they will be ambushed by Howlers in the Palace District. The Howlers carry an array of weapons. For blades, they use oversized tailor's scissors, and can carry pistols or wrist bows that shoot regular bolts or howling bolts that stun enemies. They also use hallucinogenic powder to disorient. As the name implies, they emit loud howls to announce their presence. Paolo seeks to take control of Karnaca in the name of the working people, and justifies his violence even against innocents with this goal. He has somehow obtained the severed left hand of Granny Rags, which grants him a sort of immortality as well as his base's name. He can be killed once per day, dissolving into a swarm of rats and reforming elsewhere. Only killing him twice in one day is permanent. This black magic causes Vice Overseer Byrne to launch a war against him. Depending on who, if any, the player chooses to side with, either the Howlers or Abbey will win the conflict and expand their influence across the city. If neither are eliminated, they will be forced to work together in low chaos. The Howler's second in command is Mindy Blanchard, a Morlean tattoo artist and dabbler in black magic. Blanchard wishes to reproduce the powers granted by the marked hand that Paolo possesses, using tattoo ink and other ingredients, including the tattooed corpse of Amadeo Monte, which the player can retrieve for help in approaching Addermire. The other major gang in Karnaca, the Eyeless, I've already described in my video on the Cult of the Outsider. Of course, across the Isles, the most powerful gangs of all are the official, government-backed ones, the Dunwall City Watch and the Grand Serkonan Guard. So for more information on those, check out my Armed Forces of the Isles video or my Overseers and the Abbey video.